Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Momentum Monday. Today we're covering Bitcoin's recent run, SMCI's induction into the S&P 500, exactly what's going on with Apple, the recent short squeeze superstars, and of course Celsius, probably one of the hottest stocks in markets today. Then we'll take a big picture look at the indexes and respond to the Stock Twitches community no-brainer plays heading into the rest of this year. My name is Tommy Tranfo, and with us again is the chart samurai Ivan Hoff and the dojo master himself, Howard Lindzen. So, crypto has been pretty impossible to ignore this week. Everything has been all about crypto. Give us the scoop as far as what you guys are seeing, when you take a look at Bitcoin and just the crypto sector at large.
Go ahead, Ivan. And Ivan had a baby. So, Ivan, what's the name of the baby?
Alexander. Big congrats, Ivan.
Alexander's second name is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, Ivan Hoff. Oh my goodness, look at that.
All right. I mean, this is a chart. Can you see that chart of Bitcoin that I'm sharing, the weekly chart? I mean, obviously, it has been on quite a run. It has doubled since September, since basically the Fed alluded that they're done raising interest rates. It has more than doubled since then. And we've talked about it. Bitcoin is basically a low float stock. It doesn't have any earnings or sales, so it's impossible to value. So in an environment, in a risk-on environment where people want more and more exposures to more exotic vehicles, something like this happens. So it's back near
it's
potential resistance, right? Like the previous high. So I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of goes sideways and consolidate here, maybe between 50 and 60 before it attempts to break out again. But from what I see, the demand and supply, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes much higher, maybe to 100,000 at some point after some consolidation.
Yeah, first of all, I'm long. So if we look back to 2021 when the double top crash happened, we didn't have ETFs. Again, I don't know if that's good or bad. Once the institutions are in, it's not what we started out with. Bitcoin is not this, non-government thing. So I can't predict if that's good or bad. It's definitely not what Satoshi, it's definitely not what he had in mind when he wrote the white paper, is that there would be ETFs on this. So let's, pay a little respect to the fact that it's a perversion of now. I mean, Bitcoin, if you own it, cold storage or the way it was in Satoshi meant it, or the white paper meant it, is different. But now it's just a butchered, perverse government adopted, piece of paper. And obviously people think that's good. Will it last? I don't know. But like in 2021, rates were on the way up, right? When Bitcoin crashed and the euphoria of the NASDAQ was the reality of the NASDAQ with the crash. Today, Bitcoin's rising before the Fed has even started declining rates. And so it looks like it's going to go much higher, but it's such a perverse derivative. There's so much derivative, attached to Bitcoin. So, and then the second biggest thing is stable coins. So now Bitcoin, if everybody's over in Bitcoin, the real money that's over in Bitcoin, the adoption of stable coins now is like an on-ramp to the rest of crypto. And I think that's why we see the derivatives, kind of rallying. Helium, Render, INJ.X, like a lot. Solana, Ethereum's running now. So when people feel comfortable, they start moving their money out of Bitcoin into the derivatives, right? But, it's not just that. Gold basically broke out on Friday too, which is, another kind of derivative for rates, money supply. So GLD broke out. So no one's really talking about that because it's not exciting, but gold futures kind of broke out. Ivan, did you notice that?
Yeah, actually, that was my idea for next week.
Okay. So no one's watching, but that's been like forever. I don't know if you could pull it up, GLD.
Yeah.
I don't know
Let me
how
pull it
else
up.
people are
Definitely,
playing it.
it's
I
been a
think good traders are playing with
multi-year
futures.
base. Here's a monthly view. So if it breaks out, it can probably make a significant move
Yeah.
higher,
It's not exciting
sustainable.
for people who want to trade miners and MicroStrategy and Bitcoin and all the derivatives, but
The miners are not looking that bullish, Howard, but gold
no,
specifically.
I meant Bitcoin miners,
Oh, Bitcoin
crypto
miner.
miners.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So people want to trade all these derivatives of crypto, but like GLD breaking out, LATAM breaking out. There's just so many breakouts, right? So it's hard to be bearish. I think you could see a lot of the comments in the stream per our question, but at the same time, just be on the alert that put call ratio. I've noticed some frothy behavior, right? A lot of penny stocks, a lot of questions about penny stocks that we'll get into, a lot of speculation, even though like NVIDIA is going up and the semiconductors are going up, companies like with incredible earnings and incredible growth, and yet people still want to trade penny stocks, which makes me nervous. Second thing that makes me nervous, put call ratio, definitely highest level since December, right? Everybody's bullish. And then the third thing is like I said, we're starting to see silly, frothy behavior. But at the same time, index is breaking out, right, Ivan? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're jumping all over the place, Howard. I thought we were following themes, right?
Yeah. All right, but so hitting on the semiconductor stuff. So obviously, the big news on Friday that broke was that SMCI got inducted into the S&P 500. Is that stuff that you would expect to see at the end of trend cycles, or hey, are we still at the beginning of this whole semiconductor saga?
well,
I mean, no one.
that's
Go ahead,
market
Howard.
cap related. Sorry, Ivan. That's market cap related, right? So um, you wouldn't be surprised for that to be the end of some kind of run here. Once the institutions readjust their portfolios, they take stuff out of the Dow just before those stocks become important. Yeah, the reverse effect. I haven't studied it, but like I said, like it's pretty everybody in the pool behavior, and that's never probably the best time to just plunge in. Ivan, what do you think?
Yeah, in the short-term perspective, meaning like the next few weeks to few months, being added to the S&P 500 is probably going to be like a bear signal, and we might see a pullback. Longer term, it just depends on what earnings they generate. I mean, it's a $50 billion company. If they continue to double and triple their earnings and revenue, it can continue higher. But short term, that's a contrarian signal being added to the S&P. I think that gap on Monday will probably be faded.
We started seeing some other breakouts in semi-related stocks like AMD and Mu last week. Does that make this price action less or more encouraging, or is it irrelevant?
It's a good point. AMD. I remember people on StockTwits talking about this at $2. The gamers, right before basically the crypto storm and the AI storm. So the gamers were all over this and lonely back in the mid-teens, 2000 mid-teens, right? They were just we thought they were as crazy, let's say, as the Fisker people are
Yep.
today, right? Like, it was a penny stock AMD. So hats off to people that bought it.
Lisa
I think,
Su, superstar.
yeah, but I think you got to remember there were lots of good points to buy AMD on the way up, and this goes to, you know, you didn't have to catch the bottom, right? I would say another one that I own, MRVL, that broke out, Marvell, which is a little more related, to the larger cap stock. I don't know what's the market cap, 67 billion. Wow. So again, there are a lot of breakouts. So I mean, I'd prefer to buy the ones that are just breaking out rather than the ones that are extended. But if they're going to pull back, they're going to pull them all back, especially the $50 billion companies. Ivan, anything you see there?
I mean, it's all related to AI, right? That entire bull market is based on the expectations that AI is going to change almost everything we do. It's going to make companies more efficient. And it's just basically like the new internet in a way as a new technology. And AMD is expected to be one of the companies that is going to benefit at some point later in the year when they release products that might compete with Nvidia. So far, it's still speculations that they'll do, but stocks move based on expectations, based on anticipation of what might happen in the future, and it's going up. I wouldn't be surprised if it even goes to 300 at some point if the market remain strong.
You just got to remember these eventually trade, back in line
Yeah,
with
eventually they
some.
have significant pullbacks, like 20,
Yeah, and
50%
it's
pullbacks.
40, 50 times expected earnings. These are not cheap even before they break up. But price action alone, man, and just like Ivan says, just the AI, at least the dips, people are rushing into the dips. So maybe just be really careful. And if you want to own them, there will be dips. But, it's not my style to chase these things. But, Marvell is one that I've owned for a while, and that's just breaking out. And you can't deny the price action in AMD. I mean, that looks like a beautiful price action. All right, what do we got next?
So, Apple found its way back in the news. You're talking about like AI hype. So they scrapped their EV project to now move their employees back to working on generative AI. The stock is also trading at this 180 level that a lot of traders are making a big point as being kind of an important place for the stock. So, what do you make of the Apple news? Kind of transitioning, scrapping the EV stuff, moving to AI. That seems like a very much a sign of the times. And then also, what do you think about this 180 level? Does it matter for the stock really?
I mean, most people who really trade stocks probably don't even pay attention to Apple just because it's a slow mover. It's showing relative weakness in a really strong bull market. So why would you even bother? So even if it breaks down, what are you going to make 3-5% when there's so many stocks that are going up 10, 20, 30% at the same time? It's
Yeah.
just completely irrelevant from a trading point of view.
Did it
And
surprise you, Ivan, that the Nasdaq was up? What we were like up 1.5% on Friday, while Apple was down. Does that divergence kind of seem a little bit
yeah,
striking?
definitely it's surprising. Apple is showing relative weakness, definitely a bunch of distribution days as of late, but I wouldn't make a big deal out of it. At some point, it will have what 10. It's down 10% from its all-time highs. It could be down 20. I think enough people probably step up and buy the dip. Uh,
Yeah, I'm with Ivan there. I mean, we're watching, that is the market, right? So the people that are just in the market, I guess they're watching it. But yeah, there's just so much action on short squeeze stocks. And I don't think traders should be focused on this 180 line. Like Ivan says, it drops 15% from here. I mean, a hell of a trade if you got the right options trade or whatever, but the dips are going to be bought. Buffett's they're going to be buying the dip. And most of the news, like Google, most of the news is people know. If you're talking about, the news is out now that Apple killed the car, and maybe it was smart for them to kill the car, right? Like hybrids are working, right? Like they know something that Elon Musk doesn't. So I think what's most interesting about Apple is they have somehow kept it a secret for 10 years, that many people. I mean, they are the only company I know that can keep a secret. No one can keep a secret on the internet. And so I think
2,000 employees seems like a lot to work on, to
2,000
scrap. Yeah.
employees, yeah, not robots, employees manage, 2,000 people at Twitter, they leak everything. But, somehow Apple, I think that's the biggest news is that somehow a
I
company
mean,
can
there's
still
been
keep
a
stuff
rumor,
secret.
Howard, that they've been working on an electric vehicle for a very long time, but it seems in the past few years, people were talking about Amazon, about Google, about Apple working on EV, and then every single one of them at some point just gave up
Yeah.
because they figure out it's just too difficult to do it, and
It,
there's so much competition. Chinese company Tesla are so far ahead,
yeah.
and I mean there are hundreds of EV companies, right? Just like 110 years ago, there were hundreds of regular car companies, manufacturers, and the vast majority of them, 99%, disappeared. They didn't survive. Only a few survived, like Ford, GM. That's it.
Yeah, I could
Most of the
almost
other.
see them doing a collab with like a Toyota,
Oh
Apple,
yeah,
and
they were talking about collaboration with the South Korean companies,
okay, so
Hyundai
I can see Apple just doing a collab when they really know what's going to happen. Listen, right now Elon's acting like Tesla doesn't matter to him because it was all about space, right? Like the price of his space companies keeps going up. All right, so not to digress, keep it on point. What was next,
Speaking of
Tony?
space, taking a look at some of the recent action happening, you mentioned it earlier in the show, but these recent short squeezes. I mean, if you take a look at a stock like Root over the last month, this thing is up like 400%. It had, accelerating guidance and just exploded to the upside. This is kind of one of my favorite examples of one of the best reasons to be on Stocktwits. This was trending like a month ago, and there are a lot of people who are kind of able to be on this early because of this action, and it's pretty remarkable to see this. What do you make of it? Kind of, is this a sign of the times? What's your take here?
Yeah, this is what happens in strong bull markets. When you have a company that, I mean, they beat earnings estimates, right? They reported a smaller loss than expected. They're still not even profitable and not expected to be profitable, as you can see here.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, when you have only 10 million shares in their float and enough buying interest, you can see that huge squeeze. I think what was like 20% of their float is short. So we can see that it's a combination of people buying new long positions and shorts getting squeezed. Is just one out of many.
Yeah, just think in a good market, while you're looking at Apple, there's hundreds of other ideas that are showing up. So I think this goes back to, especially with StockTwits, people curating their watch list, following smart people. If you're going to trade, have a system, but if you're going to trade not Apple, because now you're trading against every single person that trades the S&P. And, why would you do that? You have zero edge versus, having a plan around something that's really moving and not anybody's trading. So I think that's a mistake by people, so I have no idea on route. I'm not going to do the work now that it's gone from 10 to 40. Kudos to the people that followed the trending and got in on it and then rode
The
it from 10 to 40.
Dewsmeister, he was all over this.
Doozer? All right.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't
Yep.
DM me, so I'm a little bit pissed at him then.
Next time. All right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned kind of it's a hot stock. A lot of people are in it. Well, probably one of the hottest stocks of last week that had kind of a killer earnings and teased everybody with the move down in the pre-market and it exploded to the upside at the open was Celsius. What do you think about that company? Is that like a no-brainer hold? What are your thoughts there?
I don't drink it, so I will chime in that I follow it closely because I'm an investor in liquid death that I've talked about. So what's the market cap now on Celsius? Celsius
18
is
billion.
18 billion. So as someone who's a seed investor, luckily in liquid death, and I haven't done anything, the founder's just done an incredible job marketing water and now iced teas and other things, and sits there right on the shelves next to Celsius. I applaud Celsius for their execution because, when companies execute like this, overvalued, undervalued, good product, it's obviously a good product. People like it. I'm not sure. I've tried the drinks. They're not for me. You have to applaud because you know what, this gets bankers excited. We haven't had something like this in a while. We had I forget that other drink everybody was drinking during COVID, but these things come and go. Right? Shelf space is just a brutal warfare. This is just water and sugar and chemicals. And so this is all marketing and shelf space. And these things can come and go pretty quickly. When you're dealing with consumers' tastes, and marketing and culture. So you can't deny the price action. Kudos to the management team for, nailing the distribution and the marketing on this. No one saw it coming back in 2020. It looks like 2020 when it broke out. So it's a 80 bagger.
Yeah.
You don't have to do venture capital, right? And food, consumer beverages have been historically great stocks, from Coke and Pepsi to many, Monster Energy,
Yeah,
to now
Monster.
Celsius, and then Liquid Death coming up, probably going to be public in the next 12 to 18 months if something bad doesn't happen. So this is just going to increase this category. Young people, influencers, help, e-commerce, Shopify, all these type of things help. I don't know. Have you drinking the stuff?
I mean, it's not my thing, Celsius, but obviously incredible execution by their management. They managed to grow earnings. They managed to get the people excited about their stock, and it's been really one of the best performers of all time. Literally reminds of what Monster used to be called Hansen Naturals did in the mid 2000s when it went up exactly 100 times in a very short period.
What's Monster's market cap? 60 billion. So again, I think a lot like Crocs. I think a lot will have to do with how Celsius uses their market cap now as to protect and grow their brand. Right? When you have an 18 billion, do you start believing your own bullshit? Because you are just water and distribution, right? And a brand. So the question is really up to the management now. They've done it before. What is their plan? Will they do acquisitions, or what kind of new products are they going to launch? But you're trading at 70 times earnings, and you already have all the distribution you want. And international is it's culturally is a much different story. It doesn't get easier. Put it that way.
So, Ivan, you've just been pulling up a lot of charts, and pretty much all of the charts look pretty amazing. All pretty much up and to the right. Is that just where we're at right now when you look at the big picture, and when you take a look at the SPY and the QQQs? I mean, are we just in a bull market and continue
Yeah,
that
incredible
pace
bull
until approval
market,
wise?
and it's not just about the large caps, about Nvidia and AMD and Meta. There are a lot of other sectors that are participating. We saw the mid caps breaking out 3 weeks ago, and they're just following through from a really long base, like a 3-year base. And now we also have small cap, Russell 2000. These are 2000 stocks close at new 52-week high, setting up for a potential breakout from a very long base, like a 2-year base. So if this really follows through properly, we will see a lot wilder action, like what we'll see like 50 other routes probably, if
Yeah.
this thing really happens. Obviously,
Right.
yeah.
And right, the money can come out of the large caps and go into small caps, right? Like AI is going to help small caps too, right? It's going to, Google paid Reddit $60 million, right? And they're about to go. I mean, that's going to be one of the funnest StockTwits IPOs in the history of. And I'm watching it very closely as StockTwits founder. And Tommy, you're watching it closely too, as someone who watches the stream. That's what they're thinking about $6 billion for that.
Yeah, 6.5.
Yeah, so that'll probably be one of the most interesting IPOs in the history of StockTwits because it is the internet, right? It's where people go. I don't go there, but I'm saying it's where people chat, right? And people talk about everything. So, and Google's got to pay them to crawl their, not to crawl, but like for their data set, right? To run large language models on it. So what does that mean for StockTwits? Twitter's doing it their own with Grok. So it's a really interesting time in the market. Now, overlying that, valuations are extremely high. But at the same time, interest rates are high. So if interest rates are going to not go higher, this party can continue. If Biden and the Dems are going to do whatever they can to get elected here, and that's why historically these have been good years. If you can get through April, this can be a really good year, just on the calendar. I mean, these are just things that I've known from doing this for 40 years. But again, not all patterns repeat. But the patterns that Ivan and I have been talking about here for months, just up into the right strength. We haven't been fighting it, but for a few days looking and being worried. Right now, put to call kind of worries me short term. And then the behavior in silly penny stocks and the short squeeze stocks.
Yeah, but these are secondary indicators, Howard.
Okay. What would you?
Seasonality
Yeah, good point.
and I think the main thing that matters right now is interest rates. And then last week we started to see them attempting to break down. So if they really break down, we'll see a lot stronger action in small caps.
Yeah. No doubt. I'm
So
right there too.
the market is currently on a 4-month win streak. The highest win streak ever in history has been 15 months. If you had to bet on whether or not we hit that with this cycle, are you betting on the over or under on 15-month win streak here?
I'll take the under. I mean, that's
It
11
doesn't
more
matter
months.
to me. Like it's completely irrelevant.
Yeah, it really is for this show and for what we do. It's kind of irrelevant. It's hard to bet against this right now, but at the same time, people need to see that it shouldn't be this easy. And then there's, unfortunately, it's just a lot of stupid behavior, right? There's people in penny stocks. Like you have this incredible bull market and people aren't learning, right? And they choose to triple down on things that aren't smart. right?
All right, so let's get into that a bit. So, Ivan, if you kind of just want to have me share the screen, let's get into kind of. So, we posed a question to the community over this weekend, asking them, hey, what do you think is the most no-brainer play between now and the rest of the year? And Howard's kind of talking about is that I don't know, maybe 50% of the replies to this thread, or maybe close to that, they were in nature. People who were sharing ideas about stocks that had under 200 million market cap. And so, Howard, I mean, what do you think of this kind of action? I mean, you can continue your rant.
Yeah, we haven't done these very long, and it is, you know, yes, these type of questions. We haven't done this, so we don't really know who's kind of the responder to this. Most people aren't going to say Apple, right? Most people are going to just throw out their craziest idea and hope we chat about it. But if Ivan and I, and we'll have guests, we're not those type of. I don't understand why people would invest in stuff that's under $1 billion at this point, right? You need the indexes and hedge funds and mutual funds. You need institutional support for stocks to really start going up, right? These moments in time, like I've been talking about with Root or these short, you need the institutions, right? They either got to be short or they got to be willing to get in. And so when you're looking at stocks under $200 million, I'm always extremely wary, no matter how good the market is. But people are going to do what they're going to do. I don't find that smart. Ivan, what do you think?
I mean, many people unfortunately are undercapitalized, and they just want to either use a lot of leverage via far out of the money short-term options, or just pick very low-priced stocks or coins in hoping that they can 10x 100x their money quickly. So it seems to me people are lacking patience and are not willing to patiently compound month after month by just going for doubles for just 10-20% moves instead of looking for 10x 100x moves.
Yeah.
To me, that's a much more sensible strategy, right? If you just find a stock that can move 5% or 10% this week, and then the next week you do the same, and you just compound it over time, that's a more sensible strategy than just trying to capture like a penny stock or like a tiny coin, so
Yeah.
that can potentially make a huge move.
Yeah, I
But
mean, my son, you've done it, Tommy. My son's 24 and does parlays, right? He takes $20 and goes, I'm not going to drink if I lose. I'm going to bet a 16 parlay. What are the odds? They're zero. They're just not in line with the stupidity of the risk of that bet. If you want to do it as entertainment, you're lying to yourself, and maybe it is entertaining to get aggravated after you have three teams picked of a parlay or have these YOLO calls or puts. But over time, like Ivan says, you're best off compounding, right? And I love the name Full Degenerate. That's
I look. I'm a fellow DJ, and I aped in some Doge earlier this month, and I have been rewarded for my degeneracy. So yeah, I understand. I understand the impulse, but
I'm
I
all
think you guys.
for it if it's entertainment, which we try and make it entertainment. I'm not all for it if you just think that you have an edge. You have no edge, right? You're lying to yourself. It's not good discipline, but people should be able to. These tools exist to be a degen and to fool around, but be careful, how you do it, and be careful, how you compound your money. Like what Ivan says, like follow smart people. No smart people are doing this, right? Smart people do this. They're not doing it as like their way to truly make, the hit or do savings. Go ahead.
I just really like the word patience. I think that was a great word to use. And I think one of the most patient investor base over the last few years has been biotech investors, and it feels
Yeah.
like they're finally getting their moment in the sun. So when you guys take a look at biotech, are there any specific stocks that you personally own or long in that industry, or that you are looking at and think are looking pretty good right
For
now?
me, for me, it's XBI. There's IBB. There's XBI. I'm long XBI. There's equal weighted and not equal weighted, but the XBI is one that I'm played the breakout in, have owned for a little bit. I mean, if AI is going to help anything, it's going to be around genetics and drug discovery, right? Because you're going to be running all these simulations on compounds, et cetera, and old ideas, right? Like we've had the biggest breakthrough in maybe history with the drug for like Ozempic, right? It's an old drug that they figured out. So, pretty much that's going to happen again, right? And so I think if you're going to speculate in biotech, for me, I use the index, right? The question is, do you go equal weight or not equal weight? So XBI looks great. Ivan, have you looked at it at all?
I mean, there are definitely quite a few interesting stocks and trends in biotech, but they also come, many of them with a lot of risk. One day you wake up and it's down 80%. So Howard's approach, just owning an index, or what I do, I usually take the 3x leverage index LABU when biotech is breaking out and trending, and I just own that for a few days to a few weeks, and that's how I get exposure. But definitely, they're very interesting themes in biotech right now. If you're just willing to maybe risk a small amount of your capital on them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like the cloud, right? The cloud helped biotech, not as much as I think AI helps biotech. And then you have all this money pouring in. When you have this envy, right? Lilly and Novo Nordisk. While everybody was worried about COVID drugs, Pfizer went after the COVID drugs and some of the other names that did great. No one was talking about Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, right? And so I think once you start to see, if you go pull up a chart of Lilly, other people will have envy around that, right? Like the Magnificent Seven, why couldn't there be a Magnificent Five drug companies, right? And so Lilly's going to attract a lot of people back into healthcare biotech. So, and that's a humongous industry, right? So that's another reason to be bullish, right? Like they're not going to sit back quietly. We've been talking Fang and Mang and Magnificent Seven for what, 15 years? Meanwhile, Lilly and Novo Nordisk have better returns, and Novo Nordisk is in Denmark, right? I think Denmark, yeah. And so this is interesting. This is exciting. Like it's a broadening of like we're not just talking about Fang. And people really aren't talking about Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, right? They're still stuck on electric cars. So
well, it's just becoming to be a little bit more ubiquitous. You had the action in VKTX earlier this week, which is had a positive trial approval on their obesity drug, and you saw that pretty much like 100x.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know it was about an obesity drug, right?
Yeah.
So that's where if I'm going to speculate, I'm going to speculate in biotech if I'm a young degenerate and try and do some work and do some work there, because you have hedge fund money, you have index money, you have a lot of research, you have a lot of chatter, and there's ways to try and play an edge. So I do think biotech's super interesting. But with gold breaking out, I think metals and mining could be interesting too. So there's a lot to choose from. I would definitely, and that's what goes back to like, if your best idea is under $200 million, you're just doing it wrong, And but anyways, most importantly, Ivan's had a baby, and that's like a miracle.
Yeah.
It's an old man.
Shout out Ernie Elk. He was also on the gold trend. Good trade idea. Good no-brainer.
So many good people. We're showing them out every day. It's not just guys like Ivan. There's
the one idea. I wanted to spend some time on it. Just if you could offer just how you personally use this kind of stuff, and so Cousin Viddy's one of the greatest guys that we have sharing ideas on a consistent basis, and we open the conversation up with a lot of stupid ideas that people are chatting about, but I think this is probably definitely one of the most intelligent posts shared as a reply. Is this stuff that when you talk about selling premium credit spreads and this kind of stuff, is this activity that you involve yourselves with? Is this what you want to be doing more of? Like, what do you think of these strategies?
A little more sophisticated. I use the stock market to index and to find growth, not to bring in premium and income. But so many people do this, and it's, if you know what you're doing, it's, selling premium has been generally, instead of picking up nickels in front of a steamroller, um, you know, but again, you got to know what you're doing, because you're following more things, right? You're trying to peg something. And for me, it's just not something. I'm a growth guy, and I'm trying to find 10 and 20 baggers and 100 baggers. So it's hard for me to think in terms of spreads and income. But again, that's what makes the market fantastic. Guys like Cousin Vinny, who've been around forever, have been sharing ideas around this area. Ivan, what about you?
I mean, personally, I think that selling premium, especially naked, is one of the few ways that you can blow up.
Yeah.
And most people need to be very careful if they don't have enough experience and enough knowledge in that field, and probably avoid it.
Right. So it's a very sophisticated strategy, but it doesn't mean you can't read up on it and try it with
Yeah, because
small
when you
amounts.
short the stock, it can go 10x against you.
Well, look at
if you
Root, right?
if you
Look at
sell
Root.
premium,
Yeah.
it can go up so many times against you. So the risk to reward is inverted. So for me, it's just not worth it, even trying it out as a strategy. But that's just me.
All right, that's great feedback. Appreciate it. We'll link the thread in the show notes below. You guys should all check it out. We got some really great replies, and it's interesting
Yeah,
stuff being
really
shared.
good replies. Thanks everybody for chiming in. We'll start having more other guests, but keep it simple. Like, in the end, everybody's got to start keeping it. The biggest thing I see mistake from listening to all these messages, people are kind of not keeping things simple. But everybody have a great week. Ivan, have a great week. Tommy, thanks for doing it.
Howard, can you speak too? Do you have any ideas and tips for the people on specific names before we head out?
I've been talking about Render, which is my speculative crypto. I mean, we've been long Bitcoin and we're bullish, right? Like, I don't have any specific. I talked about Marvell, which I've been long. I'm still very long Shopify. I haven't given up on Google, but it's not going anywhere with this many.
You think they need a CEO change? That's been the talk of the town, with Sundar getting a lot of hate.
I don't know. I mean, again, a lot of the stuff is priced in, right? Everybody already has bet against Google. We've had a year since OpenAI came out, so it's. I assume it's priced in. My intern chief of staff, Ethan, who runs Gemini on his email, like, meaning he's not just going to Gemini, he's just running Gemini on his apps. It works spectacularly, right? So depending how you use these tools, you can't get caught up in the media. But no, I mean, Google has threats. It's not a clear sailing for them. When you own 92% of the search market, a little blip and the world will freak out, right? So there is risk, but I think the risk after a year of banter around AI is somewhat priced in. But at the same time, it's weak. So those are a few ideas.
So, Ivan, you mentioned gold earlier in the show. Anything else?
I mean, there's so many others, but gold, it has had so many false breakout that many people don't believe in it anymore. Yeah. So if it goes, it will really go, and it can make a pretty quick move.
Yeah, it can do it quickly, I think, is what I've been saying. It's like Japan. When it broke out, we were talking about Japan, and it just made EWJ made like a 50% move in like 2 months. So when things are compressed and as long as gold has, it's like, if you don't take the trade, you can miss 20, 30% very quickly, right? And remember, I was talking about MMYT for a very long time, many false starts. And then when it finally broke out, I mean, it went 60% pretty quick. And so that's why big bases are something that, especially in larger cap companies, are fantastic, because when they move, it can move in a month what could take 2 years. And that's what you're looking for, that compression. Right? If you're going to trade, you want that compression, and you want to line the odds up in your favor. And right now in an up market, those are good things to have at your behind. behind you.
You guys just dropped a lot of alpha for people to chew on. Appreciate it. Thank you guys all so much. Any final thoughts for the folks?
See you.
See you guys.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you, folks.